Now, obviously, if you've been out picking up the kids from school, you know there's a lot of people on the roads and you've got to be extra careful, especially in those school zones. School zones are all part of Queensland Road Safety, and this week is Queensland Road Safety Week all week. So we've been engaging with the issue of road safety. On Tuesday, we talked about safe caravan towing. Yesterday, about the role that the Queensland Police play in road safety. Today, a different branch of the emergency services, Queensland Fire Department. Now, Luke Griffin is a senior firefighter in Bundaberg, but he's also part of the road action and awareness planning program that is run in local high schools. It's called RAAP, RAAP. But more than that, he is a firefighter with over 10 years experience in the job and has also seen his fair share of what happens when people don't listen to the road safety messages. Luke, it is great to have you in the studio with me this afternoon. Welcome along.
No, my problem.
All right, Luke, let's start with the basics, and that is what is the role of firefighters in road safety? And I guess I'm looking at not just what you do to prevent it, but what you guys end up doing when people don't listen to the road safety messages.
So our role changes, I guess, depending on the incident itself. So it could be from something as simple as scene safety, arriving on scene and making sure that there's not going to be any further risk or hazard to the public or other first responders, to as greatly as obviously the critical process of extracting people from mangled wrecks and vehicles, using hydraulic equipment to cut them out and aid in their treatment by paramedics.
That's probably I think, I could be wrong, but I think personally that's probably the toughest part of your job.
Oh, absolutely. We see and have to deal intimately with some extremely traumatic situations and circumstances, incidents that change people's lives horrifically at times, and that has a cumulative effect, most definitely.
How do you deal with that? How do you process that afterwards? Obviously, when you're on scene and you're on task, that's completely different. You're focused, your training kicks in, you know exactly what you've got to do, how to do it, and you just get the job done. But then you've got the after part where you've got that downtime and you've got to think, ooh, what actually just happened?
It varies very much from person to person, and it also changes with your time in the job, I believe. I think some people are able to compartmentalise very well and address it as that is the job, that is part of the job, and they are able to leave that at work when they come home, and other people deal with it in different ways. So some people like to chat with peers. We have a very good peer program where we'll have other fireys from other stations reach out to us when there's a traumatic incident, but we also have a good rapport within our own colleagues at our own stations where we'll do debriefs after incidents and we'll chat about things, and we'll also reach out to guys on other shifts that we know have been to traumatic events and just touch base, see how they're going, and offer them an ear if they want to have a chat or catch up for a beer or something like that.
And I guess that's an important thing, isn't it? It's not these days just, oh, well, you've done the job, off you go. Yeah, you'll be right, mate. It's very much, actually, we're more aware now than we ever were of the impacts of this particular job.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And we are very proactive. I've been in the career for just on 11 years now, and we're very proactive with regards to that, but also we're very aware of that, as I mentioned before, the cumulative effect and limiting exposure where we can for each other. So if we have newer firefighters, for example, who perhaps haven't been to incidents that are traumatic, and if we can get a job done that they don't need to be there for, we might task them with something else at that scene, maybe managing traffic or something like that, so that across the course of their career we can try and limit that exposure, because research is showing that is a drop in the bucket, and each drop adds up till eventually it overflows, and it can become an issue within your own life. So as professionals who look out for each other, we're aware of this, so we can try and help manage that with firefighters coming into the job.
Luke Griffin from the Queensland Fire Department is my guest this afternoon. We're looking at road safety. You might think it's a bit odd to talking about mental health and coping with the stress of a job when it comes to road safety, but I think it's a key reminder for all of us that road safety is not just about what happens on the road. It's about what happens if something goes wrong. And that's something you guys look at constantly, because if there is a collision, if there is a rollover or whatever on the roads, who's the first one that have to respond? It's usually you guys.
Well, it's true for I guess you say, the general knowledge of the situation. But in reality, it's the public that's first on scene all the time. And unfortunately, quite often the public doesn't have access to the opportunities for those, the counselling or the conversation with peers, like I said, that we do. Yes, we are next on scene to then intimately deal with the rest of the incident. But we call it the ripple effect, where we have different people involved or exposed to the incident, and it initiates with the public, the first people to be there. And then it goes to, say, the police arriving, because, police cars are a lot quicker than 18-tonne fire trucks.
Yes.
Paramedics, ourselves, tow truck drivers, helicopter crew for critical care, and even main roads when they have to come out and observe the scene to see what damage is to infrastructure and things like that. But that ripple effect then goes on to, doctors and nurses when they go to the emergency ward at the hospital, and then goes to their family, obviously, of the people involved in the accident, their friends, colleagues, friends at school for school kids, those sorts of things. The ripple effect itself and the way it actually permeates through our communities is absolutely massive.
That is fascinating to look at that ripple effect and what it actually means too. Luke, hey, stick around, will you? I've got a few more questions I'd like to ask and just continue to unpack this angle of road safety from your perspective as an experienced firefighter. It's Matt Gees with you on the home run this afternoon. My guest in the studio is Luke Griffin. He's a senior firefighter based in Bundaberg, but he's also the coordinator of a road safety program that targets young people. Now, Luke, we were talking about that ripple effect, the idea of what happens out on the road doesn't just impact the person who's in the vehicle, but if they're involved in a vehicle crash, it can impact the firefighters, the ambulance, the bystanders, and so much more, which is, I guess, a really good segue into understanding more about what is the RAAP program that you're one of the lead coordinators on. Remind me again of what RAAP actually stands for.
So RAAP is the program that we deliver to the grade 11s predominantly as their learners or P-plate drivers, and it's the Road Attitude and Action Planning program or presentations. And we liaise with the local high schools to go in and do a presentation to talk about basically making good choices on the road, and prior to being either a passenger and or a driver, and those choices and the consequences that can either lead to obviously good outcomes or not so good outcomes, and what that means.
Now, I've worked at a school and actually seen your presentation twice now, and it's really fascinating because it's not just you guys standing there saying, don't do this, don't do that. You really do engage the students and get them to think about things. Like I remember one part of your presentation where you're showing a photo of a scene and you're saying, well, how many people do you think are involved there? And you talk about the fact that if there's a red helmet or a yellow helmet there, it's the senior level of fire department people there, which means that there are X number of actual firefighters on duty on that one job alone.
Yep.
And I think the kids suddenly think, oh, it's not just a couple of people involved.
Yeah, 100%. And that is, like I mentioned before, that particular image you're referring to is within the section where we talk about that ripple effect. And that image is, if you remember, it's a photograph that was taken early in the morning at a particular accident in suburban Brisbane, I believe. And, when you just look at the image on face value, you don't realise how many people are there and then how large that ripple effect will be, and with the consequences, flowing throughout the community. And it is a good opportunity to get the students to look at it and then start pointing out certain things, as you mentioned, just even the number of firefighters on scene, let alone the paramedics, let alone the police officers, and then as you've seen in that image in the background, you can see bystanders, as I said, that the people first on scene from the public. You can see that's in a school zone. There's a bus stop there that the actual accident has gone through. So the students really get to sit back and get a genuine look, as well as seeing the mangled wrecks of the cars, as to how impactful their choices can be when things go wrong.
What are some of the stats that you're able to then share with these students about the number of incidents involving road collisions or road incidents that fireys have had to deal with?
So, for example, one of the stats, we do go through a few statistics with the students just to try and base everything in reality. Not just feeling an emotion, and it's about the mental side of things or the impact of injuries, but we address the demographic at that particular stage of their career because they are the most at-risk group there is, particularly when they first become P-plate drivers, as opposed to supervised learners. So, and that demographic of 17 to 24-year-olds makes up 10% of the driving population. But
10%?
10%.
Wow.
Yes,
10%. I didn't even think that there was 10% of the whole people on the roads are 17 to 24-year-olds.
It's pretty colossal, yeah. But they represent 25% of fatalities. So the overrepresentation based on the actual number of drivers there are is alarming, which is why it's so important for us to go and talk to young drivers and to try and help them be self-aware of their choices and hopefully then avoid those consequences.
Just give me a sec to just process that, because I've heard these stats before, but it's been a while, and it's just thinking, I think it's come home to me even more so now because my eldest daughter is now a learner driver. And it's like, how do we ensure her safety? And to her credit, she's picked up a lot of stuff while we've been driving her that she's now bringing into the learner driver space, which makes her more aware, which is a really good thing from a parent's perspective to know.
Yep.
So when you head out and engage with the students, what are some of the reactions you get that you're really excited about when it comes to hopefully reducing those percentages that you've just mentioned?
Well, it's very... we present from a position of authenticity, and that's what we base the foundation of the RAAP program on. We are literally the people who sit there and say to the students, it is us who cuts you out of these cars. It is us who has to get in the vehicle and help manage your injuries or whatever with the paramedics. And unfortunately, it is us who may be picking your body or your limbs off the road and all that other gory stuff that comes with it. And we present that from that position of authenticity. And that's pretty much how I open my presentations to students. And I tell them, we're here, we're talking about a very serious topic because of the extreme number of injuries and deaths that occur on our road, and that the consequences of that can be life-changing, and so therefore the importance is unparalleled. But being able to present from that position of authenticity, I think, has the students dial into what we're saying very quickly. I have the fortunate position of having been a teacher for 10 years myself, previous to being in the fire service. So I know that students need to connect with what the content matter is, and it needs to be relevant. And if it's not relevant to them, they can very quickly disengage. So them being at the point in their driving careers where the relevancy is very high, and then having us go in there as firefighters and having the ability to illustrate how horrific the outcomes can be, we often get some very good interaction both during and even afterwards, students coming up and talking about the presentation, asking us questions and things like that. We also get very good commentary, follow-up from staff and teachers, and occasionally parents, from students either going back to the classroom with their, there might be their core class or their pastoral care class or something like that, and then that feedback coming to us about the conversations they've had around that. And I finish the presentations by saying to the students, I literally hope I never see you again. Because at the end of the day, that's the goal. If I don't have to see you as a firefighter, then you're having a good day and I'm having a good day and everybody's having a good day.
Road safety is a bit of a complex issue, and Luke Griffin has been unpacking that for us. Luke, unfortunately, there's so much more that we could talk about in regards to road safety, but just one last question. Have you ever thought about taking your RAAP program and delivering it to parents?
It's a very good question, Matt.
Question without notice.
You've really put me on the spot. I think it probably would be quite rewarding to do so, because I think as parents, my son's in his mid-20s, and actually tomorrow he'll be driving down from Rockhampton to visit me. We do our learner stuff so long ago for most of us who have children who are at the age of being learner drivers themselves, and we kind of lose touch with what it does mean to be a learner and what it does mean to not have, I guess you'd say, the confidence in our abilities or the innate things that we do without thinking in a car that for most of us make our trips safer. And then to, I think, have those elements put in front of you, put in your face, is as part of the RAAP program as a parent could be very beneficial. Like you said, even the basics of the statistics that we talk about. We go into things like making choices if you're going to a party with friends, having a second option, plan B to get home, those sorts of things. And then also we talk about, for example, options with being a passenger. If the driver is driving in a way that you're not comfortable with, strategies that you could use to, get out of the vehicle or find another way home or something like that. Those things too, for parents, could be very beneficial to then take away and have the discussions with students themselves, with their own children.
Well, food for thought there, but yeah, a fascinating program, one that if your Year 11 student has not yet been part of, make sure you find out when they are part of it, because it'll be very interesting for you as a parent to engage with the content that they've been exposed to.